you're wondering what the president thinks of all this, if you're wondering what he's saying about all this behind closed doors, well, it's exactly what you would expect. He wants to root out the rats. Los Angeles Times obtained an audio recording of the president at a private event with staff from the U.S. mission to the UN and their families, including children, in New York City this morning. Take a listen.
Basically, that person never saw the report, never saw the call, meaning never saw the call, heard something, and decided that he or she, whoever the hell it is, sort of like almost a spy. I want to know who's the person that gave the whistleblower, who's the person that gave the whistleblower the information, because that's close to a spy. You know what we used to do in the old days when we were smart, with spies and treason? We used to handle it a little differently than we do now.
The spies and treason we used to handle it a little differently than we do now. To be clear, or as clear as we can divine, the way we used to handle spies in the old days was by executing them, which is what the president seems to be implying should happen to the people that furnished information to this individual, that they should be hanged, killed, executed. That's the joke, I guess. He said this at the same time his acting DNI was defending the whistleblower before Congress, saying the whistleblower acted in, quote, good faith. And what is very clear now is that the whistleblower is in danger of being outed and retaliated against, as is anyone who talked to the whistleblower, because the entire White House is being run by a person who, like a mob boss, hates nothing more than rats. I'm joined now by the reporter who broke the story for the LA Times, White House reporter Eli Stokols, also the Tonight Washington Post national reporter and MSNBC contributor Carol Leonnig, who has also been covering this story closely. Eli, I read your report and then I listened to the sound. It's really quite something for the President of the United States to say.
And yet it feels somewhat familiar, Chris, because we've heard the president sort of joke about violence before. We've heard him almost incite violence at rallies, saying, you know, back in the old days, you could just punch somebody in the face. And so, in a sense, this is not out of character. And yet, you know, when I heard it for the first time today, it just took me aback because he started talking about the whistleblower almost 30 seconds or a minute into his remarks to this group of nonpartisan diplomatic officials there in New York. And I went back and listened to it a couple of times, and it was clear what he was saying. And as he often does when he says things like this, he does it in a joking manner. It was sort of casually menacing, it seemed like. And the reaction in the room, there were a couple people who laughed, whether those were awkward laughs or genuine laughs. Impossible really to know from the recording that we obtained. But for the most part, the people in that room seemed stunned because most of the people in there were dead silent.
Carol, this is not just the idle thoughts of a person removed from it or someone watching it on TV and saying, oh, they should, like, this is the person who runs the executive branch. He's the commander in chief. He's the person who sits at the top of the pyramid of the entire intelligence apparatus, which has statutory obligation to protect the whistleblower from retaliation. What does it mean for the people that work in the White House and throughout the intelligence community?
Well, I'm really grateful to Eli for obtaining this recording because it answers a question I asked the White House with my great colleague Josh Dawsey when we were learning about the transcript or the summary of this call. We asked, we're hearing there's a investigation, a hunt for the leakers inside the White House. And the answer we received was, oh, no, we don't know about any such hunt for the leakers. But in this secret or private conversation, the president basically said, oh, yeah, I want to know who gave the whistleblowers that information. It couldn't be more clear. And it echoes what he has done in previous episodes like this when he's embarrassed or some politically damaging information is revealed by the press. He wants to get to the bottom of who shared what he said.
The striking thing as well, Eli, to me, is, and I keep coming back to this, the whistleblower complaint implicates many, many people, that there were multiple officials on the call, that there were multiple officials who expressed concern, that there were White House lawyers directing the cover-up by moving it into the most secret classified system, despite the fact it didn't need to be there. It strikes me there are lots of people Congress could talk to and the president must suspect of disloyalty currently reporting to the White House every day.
Right. He's always been suspicious of leaks, and that's true. The information that we got from the whistleblower's report tells you that there are around a dozen people who had information on this call. And while one of them, the whistleblower, came forward, the rest of them are alleged to have taken the transcript, the actual recording of that call, and tried to hide it, which tells you that they knew that the president's comments on that call were wrong. They won't admit it now, but it's obvious that there are people in the White House who do know right from wrong, and the president president is clearly nervous about more people talking to the press and potentially to Congress as well.
It strikes me, Carol, that none of those people have the same incentives right now. I mean, we're watching Rudy Giuliani is currently attempting to throw the State Department under the bus by saying that everything I did was directed by the State Department, which maybe he finds exculpates him, but of course implicates the Trump administration and the State Department, because the degree that the U.S. apparatus of foreign policy is being marshaled for this corrupt end, it's a bigger scandal. All which is to say the people involved in this don't all have the same incentives, do they?
Absolutely not. They don't. But I would just push back a little bit about this idea that Rudy thinks the State Department commissioned him. The person that commissioned him was Donald Trump. Right. And you can see that in the whistleblower's complaint.
Yes.
I mean, there are a series of State Department officials who are trying to gingerly, help the Ukrainian officials, quote unquote, navigate the president's demand in the July 25th phone call. Hey, we help you out a lot. Now, can you investigate this Biden situation for me? It's clear that at the State Department, there are ambassadors who, whether they are in favor of this presidency or not, are very concerned about the nature of the way Rudy is going about, Mr. Giuliani is going about this sort of separate Secretary of State business, and they're very worried about what they're communicating to the Ukrainian officials and really to a new regime that's an anti-corruption regime, and how they are giving them conflicting information that conflicts with what Rudy's telling them. I also am so intrigued, Chris, in just the idea that this whistleblower, as it comes off the page to me, is a person who is channeling for others who are inside the White House and more vulnerable, channeling for them concerns that they have. It's almost like, I'll take the hit and all of you all, duck and cover.
This is not just one sort of like real righteous person who was like, you guys, you're getting it all wrong. This was someone who people were confiding in because they were horrified by the actions that they had seen. Eli Stokols and Carol Leonnig, thank you both.
Hey there, I'm Chris Hayes from MSNBC. Thanks for watching MSNBC on YouTube. If you want to keep up to date with the videos we're putting out, you can click subscribe just below me, or click over on this list to see lots of other great videos.